Well, good morning again. We are doing, excuse me. So I'm here today. I want to share something exciting that God is going to be doing in our church this year. I'm very excited about it. I saw that clip. I've talked before about this group, Every Child, which I've been on the board now for coming up on a year. And it's a group that started in Portland, and it was with a lady who said, I've been a foster mom. I don't really know anything else about the foster system. And so she started looking into it and seeing how, unfortunately, neglected this system is in our state, really countrywide. I think foster care, the foster system, has a lot of problems in our country, and so much of it comes from the overwhelming need that it is. It's a huge need. In fact, in Lincoln County, we have over 100 children in the foster system. 100 children. We have about 40 families who are foster parents. And out of those 40 families, 12 of them are non-relatives to the kids. In our county. In our county, we have 12 foster families that are not, taking in a kid from some sort of relative. That's tragic. That breaks my heart. As someone who has 4 kids of my own, as someone who has done children's ministry, as someone who cares about children, that breaks my heart. And it's a horrible issue. And what that means is that we have DHS workers who are overwhelmed. Right? They're not perfect. They're human beings. They struggle. They mess up. I know that in this county we have foster workers who have made mistakes and who have messed up. But these are people who are trying. They got into this business to try to help people, and they never receive any appreciation, any thankfulness. Right? We have foster parents. We have foster parents who are trying to take in children, and as a parent, it's hard to raise your own kids. But then to think about taking another child and bringing that into your home, and here's a child who's coming from a broken family, who's struggling, who knows what sort of mental and emotional and physical struggles that they are going through, and to try to bring that into your home, and to bring that child in and show them love and care can be overwhelming. And then we have these kids, the kids themselves, who are going through all of this transition and difficulty. Some of them, unfortunately, bounced from home to home because the foster parents are not able to take care of them because they're overwhelmed and they're struggling. And so it's a terrible, overworked, stressed out system. And so my hope is that we as a church, the plan is that we as Newport Christian are going to do something about it. We're not just going to sit here and look at the stats and look at the situation and go, man, this is awful. And so we're going to start actually trying to act and make a difference in our community in an area where there's a great need. I'm excited about it. And so what we have planned right now is coming up in May, on May 17th. It's a Sunday. And on May 17th, we are going to have a day of service. You're going to show up for church, I hope. Please do. You're going to show up for church, and we're going to come in here, and I'm just going to say a quick prayer. And that's it. And then we're going to go out and we're going to try to serve our community. And it's going to look a couple different ways. I'm still working out all of the details on everything, but how the plan is for right now is that some of us are going to go to foster families' homes. And we're going to go to their homes and we're going to try to just serve them. And I'm still, I'm trying to make sure all the details work, and I don't even know what that's going to look like. I'm going to try to get information from some of these families. What can we help you with? Is it simply folding laundry? Is it vacuuming the floor? Is it trying to find somebody who can change your car's oil for you? What is something that we can do and come in for an hour and a half, and just show you love and appreciation and make your life a little bit easier as you're trying to love on a kid, trying to help a kid going through a difficult situation. We're also going to have here for church time. We're downstairs. We're going to be trying to pack some meals, and we're going to keep them simple. We're going to keep it inexpensive. We're going to be trying to pack meals for these families that we can stick in the freezer. And then when a family gets a call in the middle of the night or during the day and somebody says, hey, we need to take a kid, they can bring this kid home. And as they're trying to get this kid settled in their house, as they're trying to make sure this kid has a toothbrush for the night and pajamas to wear, and they're feeling comfortable and they're getting settled and they're okay, they don't have to go, oh, now I have to figure out what should I feed my family. They can just reach in the freezer and pull out a frozen dinner and stick it in the oven to heat up. And so we're going to be doing that. And the reason we're doing that is number one, we have to, I know we have people who can't necessarily go to people's houses and do things, and so I want some availability there. The other thing is, in order to go to foster parents' homes and know where they live, we have to have people background checked. Because we want to take care of these kids. We want to protect these kids and these parents. And so in order to we're going to get as many people background checked as we can. It's going to be a big project. But if we can't get people background checked, if for some reason you're not able to get the form turned in, or if we have visitors that day, or people out of town who come back, we want to have as many people able to serve. And even if you're like, I don't know if I can do much of that, come anyway. Come sit downstairs of the church. Delight in the conversation. Delight in the being together as a church, trying to make a difference in our community. And there's a lot of different parts. There's a lot going on. On the 25th of this month, it's a Tuesday, we're going to have a day of prayer. And a day where we as a church are going to come together and we're going to pray about this. And we're going to pray about a few things. Number one is we're going to pray for each other, because our church has been hit hard. We've been attacked this last year. And I wonder if part of that is God seeing us as a church going, hey, we want to make a difference. We want to do something. And in preparation for that, we're being attacked. And so I want to pray for our members and to keep us strong, to keep us faithful, to keep us encouraged and leaning on Christ through this. I also want to pray for this day of service on May 17th, and I want to lift this up to the Lord, and I want to turn over to Him and say, God, use this. Please use this. For us, it's one day, a few hours. This could make a difference for people. Please use this for your kingdom, for your glory. Not to make me poor Christian look good, but for you, God. And I also want to pray, going, what's next, God? What are you wanting us to do? How do you want us to connect more with every child of the church? How do you want us to connect with the foster system and try to help families and kids and DHS? What else can we do, God? And I want to pray to go, God, show us. Show us each as individuals what's our role, and show us as a church what we're to do. And even beyond that, as we're trying to be better at reaching our community in the name of Christ, what else is there? Outside of even just this foster system, God, where else are you calling us as a church? What else can we do? We don't want to just sit here in the church building and go, this is nice, let's sing some songs and then let's go home. Till next Sunday, let's make a difference for Christ. So that's going to be coming up on the 25th. If you have a prayer request going on for yourself, for someone else in this church, for even somebody outside of this church walls, family, friends, if you want to, there's prayer cards in the pews. If you want to grab one of those today, next week, and fill one out and just write down, mark on there, hey, this is for the prayer list that's going to be put together. And just drop that in the offering box on your way out. That would be a great way to get that on the list. If you want to call or email the church office this week, please do that, and we'll get prayer requests on the list so that we can give a list to people on the 25th to go, here's what we want you to pray about. For our church members, here's what's going on in their lives to lift them up. And we're actually going to keep that list going beyond just this day of prayer on the 25th. We're going to continue to have that list available continually, because it's so important to be bringing one another to the Lord. And so one more thing is, as we're preparing for May 17th, I told you there's a lot of moving parts. If you guys want to come up, and Dean and Marilyn, so one thing that we have to do, like I said, is give background checks. If you're like, I want to go to somebody's house, and I want to serve, and I want to do something at somebody's house, I'd love to do that. Murray and Cap are collecting background checks. They're approved. They're going to be very secure. I know that there's sensitive information in background check forms, and we want to be very appropriate with those. We want to protect your privacy. And so they have forms. If you see one of them, I'm bringing them up so that everybody can see faces, because I know we're growing. That's a good thing. I want to make sure everybody knows. Go see one of them, get a form from them, fill it out, give it back to them. We are going to keep the forms locked up. We're going to keep them secure. We will take very good care of your information. I promise. Yes?
Since 2014, we've been doing background checks. And anybody who's been involved in the C ministry downstairs,
Yes.
It's not a new thing. It's something I just get online and do it. I just need all that information. And also for your information, I did one on myself today and I passed. So.
Yes, so you can trust Murray. And that's true. We have run background checks. We try to keep our CE people background check. It's been a while since we've done that. So even if you serve in CE, if you've had a background check you've done in the past, we're going to try to background check everybody. So please, whether you've been background checked or not, fill out one of those forms and get it back to Murray or Kat. Like I said, we'll keep it very safe and very secure. Dean and Marilyn are the leaders of the deacon and deaconess team here at the church. And I asked them on behalf of their team to take over the food portion.
They don't know what.
That's right, they don't know yet. Surprise! To take over the food portion. I'll be honest, I know nothing about food. If it takes longer than 5 minutes to microwave, I'll starve. And so I don't know anything. I'm like, I don't know how to get the ingredients. I don't know what ingredients we need. I don't know what kind of food we should prepare. I don't know any of that. I don't know what it should look like downstairs. They're going to be in charge of that. And the deacon and deaconesses are going to be in charge of that. But I said, as a team, I don't want them to necessarily do every step of the work leading up to it. That's a lot for a team. And so I'm asking for people who are willing to say, hey, I'd love to be able to go shopping and spend somebody else's money and buy some supplies that we can make food for people. Or I'd love to be able to help set things up downstairs or whatever it is. They know all the details. So if you're interested in any part of that process, these are the people to talk to. Dean and Marilyn, they are the ones who are going to be in charge of that food process and figuring out what that's going to look like, how that's going to work, how that's going to run. So please, after service today or next Sunday, whenever, talk to them and find out, what can I do? How can I help? And if you forget their faces, either of these, and you were going, I don't remember, talk to me. That's okay. You can always talk to me, and I can push you in the right direction. But I wanted to bring them up. Thank you guys for coming up, just so that people can know, these are who you should connect with as we plan this. Thank you guys. So, we've never done anything like this. I've never done anything like this. The people from Every Child have never really done anything like this. They go into different counties and try to get people from the county. Every Child Ministry is a group that comes together, and they go into counties and try to get people from the county together to figure out what they can do and how they can do it. And so they're not a group that comes in and tells you what to do. They're a group that's simply trying to get people moving. And so this is a brand new thing. We're figuring it out. And so the more help we get, the better it's going to be. And so I'm very excited about it. We have a lot to do. May sounds a far ways away. It's not. May is close. And so please be in prayer for this, even before and after the day of prayer. Please be in prayer for this. Please be going before the Lord and asking the day to go well, asking for what He wants your role to be. Please lift this up before Him. I think this is going to be an awesome opportunity for us as a church to go, we want to get outside of our walls. We do some great things as a church, right? We do wonderful ministry here on Sundays. We do some wonderful things supporting our missionaries. We do some wonderful work, but we don't do a lot in our community. And that's important. These are the people around us. This is where we live every day, and we need to get connected better. And so I'm very excited about that. In fact, before I start preaching, why don't I pray for that day? And pray for our church as well. Lord, I thank you. I thank you for guiding all of this up. Lord, you have been at work behind the scenes, just planning this and preparing this for a long time. God, you've known about this for years and years, I'm sure. But Lord, you have been revealing this recently. And Lord, I'm so excited to see you at work. Father, I'm so thankful that you've called Newport Christian to just be a little part of this. Father, I pray that you would be with our church as we are planning and preparing. Lord, help give us wisdom, direction, guidance in this. Lord, help us to make a big impact in our community. Lord, help us to help support a group that is struggling, a group that is hurting right now and needs encouragement. Father, encouragement is so huge. Lord, I pray that you would be in each one of our hearts right now, just guiding us, what our specific role in this, or what each one of us can do to be a part of this. Father, I pray that you would just bless everything as we plan and as we have the event, and just guide us, direct us, use us, Father. Help use this even to grow us closer together as a church family. In your name I pray. Amen. All right, well, today, as we look, and I think it's very appropriate. I think it's very appropriate because we've been looking at being united this month. That's been the theme of my sermon series this month. That's kind of our theme for the year. And really, so often when you serve with somebody, that brings you together as much as just about anything else. Serving at the side of someone. And as we look at being united and what that means and what that can look like, we've looked at a lot of different metaphors so far. In fact, we looked at being the bride of Christ. We looked at being the body of Christ the last couple of weeks, and what that looks like, what that really means, and what that looks like. And today I want to look at a new one, and it's this idea of being the family of God. And we talk about the family of God. We call ourselves, we're the family of God. In fact, I hear that and I go, I think about the song, I'm so glad I'm part of the family of God. You've heard that one? That's an old one, that's a good one. I won't sing it because I can't sing anyway, and with my voice the way it is right now, not pretty. That's a great song, and it's this reminder that we are God, but what does it mean to be God's family? To be God, what does that mean? So I want to look at a few passages today. I'm starting the book of Galatians. And we're going to be in Galatians chapter 4 starting out. And here's the thing about family. Here's the thing I love about the family of God, even as you're flipping there. If you are somebody in this room, some of us in this room grew up in awesome families. And some of us in this room, we grew up in a family with parents who loved us and supported us. Some of us grew up in families where we were close to our siblings. We had good relationships with them, and even as adults, there's that special connection and that bond. And some of us had cousins that lived nearby, and we got to spend time with our cousins, and they were almost like best friends or other siblings, and we had aunts and uncles that we knew and we'd like to go see and spend time with. We had grandparents that were just these loving, caring people. And if you grew up in a family like that, I love this metaphor of being a part of the family of God because you have that as a stepping off place. You can look at your own family and go, man, if this is this awesome, imagine what God's family is like. Imagine what being a part of God's family is like. That's amazing. That's incredible. That's awesome. That's a beautiful thing. But there are some of us in this room who grew up in broken families, right? Not all families are broken, I guess, but some of us grew up in pretty rough situations. Some of us grew up with parents that weren't loving and supportive. Some of us grew up with parents that didn't even necessarily really want to have us. Some of us grew up with siblings that we fought with all the time. But there's this disconnect and disharmony, and as we came to be adults, we don't even talk to them anymore, we don't want a connection with anymore, we don't even know where they live, I haven't talked to them in years. It's a bad relationship. When I do see them, all we do is still fight and go right back to our old ways. My cousins, I either didn't get along with them or they were far away in the country, no relationship at all. Aunts and uncles, just people who happen to be siblings to my parents. Grandparents had passed away perhaps, or maybe they were there, they just didn't seem to care. We were more underfoot than anything. And some of us grew up in homes like that, broken, struggling homes where there didn't seem to be much love or care or passion. And we muddled through, and it hurt, and it ached, and it was awful. And some of us grew up in homes like that, and if you grew up in a home like that, I look at this metaphor of the family of God, and I go, this is where you finally get what family is supposed to be. If you grew up in a struggling family, and you go, things were so bad, guess what? You get a better family. You get an awesome family, a family that loves you, that cares about you. You get a heavenly Father who not only placed you on this earth and loves you exactly the way you are. You get a Father who was willing to send Jesus down to die on a cross for you. You get this amazing family. And I love that. I love this metaphor of the family of God, because no matter what kind of family you come from, this is the greatest family. This is the family And we see a little bit of this in Galatians chapter 4. And we see this talk here about an heir. An heir. And here's what it says. Galatians 4, starting in verse 1. What I'm saying is that as long as an heir is under age, he is no different from a slave, although he owns the whole estate. The heir is subject to guardians and trustees until the time set by his father. So also, when we were underage, we were in slavery under the elemental spiritual forces of the world. But when the set time had fully come, God sent his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those under the law, that we might receive adoption to sonship. Because you are his sons, God sent the Spirit of his Son into our hearts, the Spirit who calls out, Abba, Father. So you are no longer a slave, but God's child. And since you are his child, God has made you also an heir. And so we see this passage, and here it is, and Paul's talking about what is heir and sonship and slavery. And here's the deal. So, in Jewish times, the Jews, we're different in how we grow up in America, right? We don't have, when you're 18, you kind of get some legal rights. When you're 21, maybe a few more, but we don't really have a stamp, you're an adult now. Right? It kind of fluctuates. It's different for every person. Some kids have to grow up quick and get on the streets in their teenage years and be kind of adults then. Some people hang on longer. In our country, how you can be on your parents' insurance till you're like upper 20s now. I don't even know anymore. Some people hang on longer, and they take a little bit longer to be ready to become that adult. We don't have a defining, now you're an adult, you've crossed this line. But that wasn't the way it was in those days. Jewish culture, when a boy would reach 12, he and his father, the next Sabbath day, would go to the synagogue, and they would sit down, and they would each have very specific prayers to pray. And the dad had his prayers, and the son had his prayers, and they would pray these prayers back and forth at the appropriate time, the appropriate prayers. And at the end, they would walk out of that synagogue, and the son would now be an adult. He would now be an adult. Overnight, boom, now you're an adult. Now you have responsibilities. Well, in Greece culture, the Greeks would have a time period. Let's see, I'm going to make sure I get the Greeks and the Romans separate, because they each have their own tradition, and I want to make sure. The Greeks would have, when you turned 7, you would be raised by your parents until you're 7 years old. And when you became 7, you would get turned over to your father. Mom raised you till then, now you get to be your dad's responsibility. And when you were 7, you would be raised by your dad until you were 18. So your dad got control of you. And he would raise you and he would teach you. And at the end of 18, you would have a special ceremony that you would be involved in. And you'd go through this ceremony, and they all had long hair. They'd get their hair cut off real short. And they would become basically cadets for the state for 2 years. And when they entered that 2-year period, at that time, during that ceremony, they officially became adults. That was the time period. Boom, you became an adult. The Romans, it was somewhere between, they didn't have a specific year, but somewhere between 14 and 17 years of age. They would go through a special ceremony. And they would go through this ceremony, and during the ceremony, they would take off their toga that was like the child toga that the child would wear, and they would put on the adult toga. And they became an adult. They had this defining moment. Now you are an adult. And we see here Paul now comparing Christianity to this process of going from a child to an adult. Because a child in those days had 0 rights whatsoever. You couldn't do anything. If you were a kid, even if you had tons of land and possessions and all of this property and value and worth, you couldn't do anything about it. You had people over you telling you what to do, controlling you. in charge of your whole life, you had zero authority. You might as well have been a slave with all the authority you had. Until you reached that ceremony, and then at that exact moment, all of a sudden a switch flipped, you're an adult now, and now you had rights. Now you could do what you wanted with what you owned. Now you had legal authority to do all of this adult things because you were legally an adult. And so Paul is saying, before you were a Christian, you were under the law. It was like you were a servant. Things were one way. You had to follow. You had no authority, no right, no privilege, no nothing. But then when you become a Christian, everything changes. And he even says, before you become a Christian, you're under the elemental forces or the elemental laws of this world. And he's talking about the worldly law, and he says elemental. We're not talking element as in like the basic building blocks of things. We're talking element as like elementary. Like this simple. He said that the law is simple, it's basic. And that's how you used to live. That's before you are a Christian, that's the way it is. You're under this is the normal laws of the world. But as soon as you become a Christian, as soon as you have Christ in your heart, as soon as you have Him, you suddenly become an heir of Christ. You're suddenly like a child of His. And the cool thing about an heir gets privileges, right? When you're an heir to something, you get privileges and rights. As Christians, as heirs, we get relationship with God. A child of somebody gets a relationship with them that a slave or a servant doesn't get, right? You get that intimate, close, personal connection that a servant would never have. As an heir, you have some security there. A servant could be kicked out, they could be fired, they could be cast to the side. But as an heir, as a child of someone, you have this security, knowing that you will be there. As an heir, you get an assurance and an inheritance. As Christians, we are assured of the promise of heaven. God has given us that promise, and He will remain faithful to what He says. We have this assurance and confidence that He will give us what He promises He will give us. As heirs, you get so much. As heirs, you also get guidance and sometimes discipline. We don't like that word discipline sometimes. It sounds horrible, but yet I'm trying to teach my kids this right now. I discipline you because I love you. Okay? I don't punish you because I don't care. I punish you because I do care. Because I want you to learn and grow. And that's what you get as an heir. Sometimes you get discipline, but not because God's angry with you, or not because He's mad and trying to just punch you. It's because He's trying to correct you. Because He cares about you so much. He gives you guidance and direction because He cares so much. When you are an heir to God, it's a very special thing. And we are God's children. We are His family. We are a part of the family of God. What an amazing gift. What a wonderful thing that we have been honored with. That we are all children of God. But that means other things as part of His family. In the book of Ephesians, chapter 2, verse 19, it says this. It says, consequently, you are no longer foreigners and strangers, but fellow citizens with God's people, and also members of His household. And when you become a Christian, no longer are you an outsider. Now, and these are two new other metaphors I'm bringing into this metaphor. Welcome to you're members of His household and citizens of the same. And here's the thing: when you live in the same household with somebody else, or when you live in the same country as other people, there are some things that you do to be respectful, right? There are some things that you do you have to have certain rules of the home, certain rules of the country that everyone needs to follow in order to be respectful and polite and caring. When I lived in college, I lived on the first floor of a dorm. And there, I can remember I was in college, and about the second or third week, We would gather together every week for dorm devotions. It was a Bible college. We'd gather together. And I can remember about the second or third week, somebody getting up, one of the leaders, and having a conversation about how if you're on an upper floor, you need to be walking more on the balls of your foot so that you don't thump down the hall like an elephant. So that everybody on the lower floors can actually have a little peace and quiet. Because when you live in the same space, when you share a space with other people, you have to go out of your way a little bit to be respectful, right? And you think about others and you process through what's something else I can do in order to make sharing this space kind. Because if you've ever shared a space with someone who doesn't behave that way, who behaves selfishly, it's very difficult and it's stressful and it's tense. And if everybody in that space lives that way, you're not going to be roommates for long, are you? And when you live in a household or when you live in a country together, you start thinking beyond just the person. You start thinking to the group. What is the group needing? How is God using the group? And that's the way it is as part of the family of God. When we're all connected, when we're all brothers and sisters, because if we all have the same dad, guess what? Surprise, you got a brother over here. We're all connected. We're all brothers and sisters. We have to learn to live together. We have to learn to be respectful and caring to one another. We have to learn to sometimes put our own wants and our own desires and our things that make our own life easier in order to make things work a little more smoothly. And I'm not just talking about Newport Christian. Yes, Newport Christian, we are a part of the family of God. But I'm even talking about other churches in our city, in our state, in our country, in our world. We are a part of this body and we have to work together. We're all citizens of the same country, members of the same household. It's about being respectful towards one another and caring towards one another. Well, back in Galatians, this time, jumping to chapter 6, we see another thing that as members of the household, we are supposed to do. Galatians 6:10, therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of believers. And this word good here really almost means more virtuous, not just like being polite, like opening the door, but even going beyond that. It's being virtuous. How can I go out of my way? And maybe being members of a household or citizens of a country, we can get away with just some basic politeness towards one another. But this good here is pushing us to the next step and saying, no, not just getting along, but going out of your way. What is something that you can do to your fellow family members to help bless them, to do good to them? And yet it includes outside the church. We should be good to all people. We should be going out. As Christians, it is our responsibility and our duty to do good to those around us. To go out of our way. We've been called to step forward and say, there's a problem here. I'm going to step in. I'm going to fix that problem. This person's struggling. Guess what? I have my own schedule, my own time, my own constraints. I'm going to give those up and focus on you for a minute. And that's all important. It's important to do that outside the church, but it's even more important to do that with your own family. To take care of your brothers and sisters in Christ. We've been called as Christians. We're part of God's family. Let's treat each other. Let's go above and beyond in our goodness towards one another. Not just meeting the most basic of needs, but going overwhelming each other with our love towards one another. And then we get down one more passage here. If you want to flip with me to the book of 1 Timothy. 1 Timothy chapter 5. We get a little bit more specific even here. 1 Timothy 5, starting in verse 1, it says, do not rebuke an older man harshly, but exhort him as if he were your father. Treat younger men as brothers, older women as mothers, and younger women as sisters with absolute purity. And you see that this is somewhat coming from the direction of probably through a man's eyes, but I think I know it's very appropriate for both men and women. Do not rebuke an older man harshly, but exhort him as if he were your father. Imagine if every one of us in this room treated fellow older Christians as if they were our parents. If you see your parents struggling with something, you don't come along and treat them awful. You don't yell at them or get frustrated at them. You come over and you give them loving guidance and direction. You treat them with care. Because it's your parents, right? And when we look around the church and we see someone older than us, we should see our own parents. We should see the people who raised us, good parents. Again, this is our heavenly family. I'm not talking about the flawed earthly ones. If you had a rough family, you should treat older folks as your parents, helping them. We're not police trying to catch them doing something wrong so that we can throw them in prison. We're trying to help each other. It says we should treat younger men as brothers. If there's someone around you, your own gender, you should treat them like your sibling. Again, the good siblings, right? I have a sister, and we had times we fought. We were pretty good kids. We still had times we fought. But guess what? We had times where we would fight. If anybody ever said anything bad about me, you know who was at my back more than anybody else? My big sister. Yeah, she can call me names, but don't you call me a name. That's what siblings do, right? And if we look around and we see the young people around us that are our age or a little younger or a little older, and treat them like siblings. It doesn't mean we're always going to get along. It doesn't mean we're exactly the same. It means that you have each other's backs. Siblings should have each other's backs. It says, look at older women. In fact, let me read this one because I want to make sure I say it right. Because this is important. It says, older women as mothers and younger women as sisters with absolute purity. And here we're even talking about people of the opposite gender, right? About how we look and treat and think about people of the opposite gender. If you're whether you're just around them or even if you're in a relationship with someone, to remember that these are your family members, and perhaps even more importantly, these are God's family members. How do you want someone treating your children? How do you want someone treating your parent? How do you want someone treating your family and thinking of them and looking at that? How do you want other people to look at your family? That's how we should be looking at our own family, our church family. We should be treating one another like family. That's what we are. And if you're dating somebody, that doesn't mean it should be gross, and yet there should be that respect, right? Understanding who this person is. If you're married to someone, if you have a husband or a wife, how do you talk to your spouse? You're going to have disagreements. How do you take care of them? If your father-in-law walked in the room while you and your spouse were talking, would he be okay with that? Because guess what? Your heavenly Father is there. Their heavenly Father, maybe that's more, but their heavenly Father is there. Watching. And we have this amazing family, and so often we forget about that. We forget about the importance of this family connection. We're a family. We're children of God. Amen. And what that means is that we should be respectful towards one another. It means that we should be virtuous towards one another, going out of our way to show God's love to our family members. It means that we should be treating one another like parents and brothers and sisters. And whether you had a good family and you want to emulate that, or whether you had a bad family and you want to push that to the side and go, this is what it should be like. That is what God is calling us to have. We're a part of His family, this amazing family filled with flawed human beings. No family with human beings in it is going to be perfect. But God's family is going to be as close as we can get. And that's the gift that we have been given as Christians, to be heirs of God, to have family members surrounding us. And we need to treat each other like loved family.